we're gonna have all this carbon credit garbage. Truthfully, if you took everybody's rights away in 2024 and then came along in 2025, CBDCs, you're gonna have a lot of resistance, you're gonna have a lot of kickback. But 6 years in the modern world, moving as fast as we are, is basically a generation. And if you bring in governments in 2024 that are gonna allow you to put in draconian legislation, lock off information, get everyone locked in their cells, end the possibility of prison riots, bring in AI, bring in 15-minute cities, by the time 2030 rolls around, everyone's gonna be totally ready. They would have all bent over perfectly for the dildo.
Yep.
And they're totally ready for the dildo.
Lubed up.
Which is coming in 2030. So I think it's pretty obvious that this year is going to be a global power grab on massive scale by the people who are in charge of things that actually matter. And it's kind of interesting. I had a conversation with somebody, I won't say their name, and we were talking about stocks. I don't like to brag, but in case you didn't know, I'm extremely rich. And we're talking about stocks and derivatives and how all these things work, how they're just pieces of paper and Ponzi schemes and all this garbage. And he said something, an off-the-cuff comment, which I found very interesting. He said, you know what? Besides farming, none of these industries are even real. And I thought and said, well, yeah, what is insurance? What is banking? I mean, they're real, but when it gets down to it, besides farming, none of this crap even matters.
And what's the one industry in Europe? I can't remember, Andrew. Sorry, my brain's a bit foggy. I've had a long day. There's one industry you see in the Netherlands, Germany, lots and lots of different countries in Europe that they're trying to slash and regulate and stop people doing. And so what is that one industry? Is it banking? Is it creating weapons and missiles to send to poor innocent Ukrainian men to get blown up fighting against the Russians? What is that industry that they're fucking with so heavily and trying to stop people from doing? Oh, wait, the first and oldest industry in the entire universe, the growing of our fucking food. No, you're a farmer and you produce 10,000 cows a month. No, they fart too much. Make 1,000. Don't worry, banking will save us. People need to eat, and this is the only industry of all of them that you can name that is under direct attack. So we absolutely sympathize and stand in solidarity with the farmers of the Netherlands, Germany, all of you protesting, keep it up.
Yeah, exactly. Great point. So we talk about the only industry that matters is the one that's under the most attack. And like you said, banking can't save us, insurance can't save us, we need food. So on our big whiteboard, I want someone to put together a YouTube video based on all the things I'm saying. I don't have a whiteboard here, but put all these pieces on the whiteboard. And then I want you to put something else on the whiteboard, something else you need to think about. There are two well-known governance systems. I guess there's 3 governance systems you can name that humans have managed to come up with in which we live our societies under, and they're all different versions of a bad idea, some less bad than others. Yeah. But we effectively have communism, capitalism, and dictatorships. Now, a dictatorship, I guess, is a bit of luck. It's a roll of the dice because it depends who your dictator is. Yeah. Does he really care? Is he smart? Is he capable? You can name countries with a forever leader who's done a very good job. Excellent. And you can name countries with a forever leader who's done a very bad job. Yes. So dictatorship is a coin flip. But then you have communism and capitalism, which for the longest period of human time, millions of people died fighting in wars because of these 2 opposing ideas. The whole Cold War, the Korean War, the Vietnam War, all of these wars were about trying to stop the spread of communism, because communism was basically a system in which the government had endless surveillance and would give you a job and force you to work a certain job, and they'd use surveillance to scare you and keep you under control. And the idea is that everybody was effectively the same, and it's created a very fair utopia. This was the idea of communism. Allegedly. But communism is based on the back of fear, because what happens in a traditionally capitalistic society is that if you don't work very hard, you will not be rewarded economically. So your punishment will be the fact that you are poor. Mm-hmm. But in a country which is communist, where no one's allowed to be poor, if you don't work properly, the only punishment can be jail. Yes. So you need to massively survey the entire populace, and then you need to keep everybody afraid and mass punish people. That's why you had these huge gulags and these huge prison populations. So then we have capitalism, which is supposed to be the anti to that. Capitalism is supposed to be freedom.
Yeah. You work, you eat, you build your own future, you're in charge of your own destiny. That's the idea.
But then you look at the modern version of capitalism we're in. So I was thinking about this again today. Which companies on the planet today are the most powerful and the most profitable? Because we're now moving away from a consumerist society in the traditional sense. In the 1990s, let's say it's 1991, and you became a millionaire. You would buy a boombox, a VHS, a TV, a Walkman, a phone, a mobile phone. You'd buy like 50 things.
Yes.
Nowadays, that's one device, and everybody has one, right? So what really matters nowadays is not consumer goods. The companies that are making the most money are making it off of data. All of the data companies are making money. All these app companies, Google, Facebook, YouTube, Meta, they make money by offering you a free service. And that free service, the price you pay is your information. So you're effectively being surveyed. You're being endlessly surveyed.
Sounds familiar.
It sounds very familiar because that endless surveillance is what allows them to build patterns. And within these patterns, they can work out how to profit from you, when to show you advertisements, what type of advertisements to show you, what makes you reply. Do you respond to red advertisements or blue advertisements? They can build a profile of you and then profit from you. Now, again, follow my logic path. If we're very logical people, and you're a business, and it is your job to make as much money as possible, and you understand that you make money from surveillance, how much surveillance do you want? Well, you want as much as possible.
Yes. And
surveillance is money.
And what's very interesting about a communist government, I can't think of a correlation, I just can't off the top of my head, that if you do not toe the party line, you get put in jail. Is there any correlation between that kind of rhetoric in the technology world you're talking about, run by all these big companies? If you don't toe the party line, behave the right way, then you get put in jail. It's very, very funny.
Interesting.
Because I know some people who've served some long jail sentence. My boy Alex Jones just finished a 6.5-year sentence because he was sentenced to obscurity, to not being allowed to talk or voice your opinion. I can't post a picture of my car out there. You get sentenced to real jail for not towing the party line in this system.
It's true. So we're talking now about surveillance, and I want everyone at home to understand the point I just made. If the company's goal is forever profit, and it makes money off of surveying you because it needs information to build patterns about how they can profit from you, they're going to look for as much surveillance as possible. The layer behind this, the next layer to surveillance capitalism, which is what we now live under, is this. Any logical being will then sit and understand that if you are the executives of said company, and you have all this information on people's purchasing patterns, you're going to then want to try and alter the patterns. You're going to sit and say, this person will buy something every 38 days. How do we make him buy something every 37 days? Because then we make more money. So not only do they want to understand you by surveillance, they then want to alter how you think and act so you are more profitable. They want to give steroids to their cows so their cows grow bigger before they're slaughtered. So not only are you being surveyed endlessly, not only is surveillance capitalism watching everything you do, they're now trying to alter how you think and alter what you do so that they can make you as profitable as possible. And I'll give you some very simple examples of that. How many times have you been on your phone, exited Twitter or TikTok or any of these apps, and then scrolled around a bit and within 3 seconds was back on it? By habit. How many times have you exited and scrolled and then you clicked on the same app again?
Whereas if you were to draw a comparison and say the year is 1991, you're sitting there reading a book, you close the book and you put it down, you probably don't pick it up till tomorrow, till it's reading time.
The point is they have ingrained in you, and via dopamine hits, via altering of the algorithm, by making sure that your eyes look in certain places on the app via the front camera, they have made you addicted to their applications, and they have to survive, because if they don't, the other application, which is more addictive, will win. And once they've done this, they're trying to alter the way you move and act on purpose so you become as profitable as possible. I'll give you another example. Why do you have to scroll down to refresh an app? Why doesn't it refresh itself? Because you're building in a physical mechanism along with your mind. Move my thumb for dopamine, move my thumb for dopamine, move my thumb for dopamine. It's a physical action that results in you getting what you want, the information or the dopamine. So surveillance capitalism is actually quite interesting because for communistic societies to work, they had to survey everything everybody did and alter the way you acted so that they could make you a profitable slave. And now we live in that's communism. Mm-hmm. Now we live under surveillance capitalism where they're watching everything you do and altering the way you act so you can become a profitable slave. So now the real question is, okay, we have more freedom in the capitalistic world, you could argue, but that again is another argument. You now have two versions of governance which are based on basically the same thing, keeping you surveyed and And when they're surveying everything you do, if you say anything that goes against their agenda or against their system or against the way they want to run things, because they know everything you say, everyone you talk to, everywhere you go, you will be punished. You now live under fear. So in a capitalistic society or a communist society, you're still not safe to say what you believe and think anymore.
Yep.
We now live under two options: communism version 1 or communism version 2. And it's all being done under the guise of these free applications, this dopamine, these attention centers, and people trying to grab attention from the internet. And it is surveillance capitalism. I want everyone to understand this. If you don't let them spy on you, you're not worth any money to them. They don't want you to use the application. There's no such thing as a free application. You are paying with your identity. And you don't only pay with your identity, you pay with it because your identity will change on a long enough time frame. They will alter your identity to make you a better slave, to make them more money. Now this all ties back. This is the full circle. Surveillance capitalism, we just described how it all works. How does that tie back into trying to affect an election? How does that tie back into trying to make everybody afraid? How does that tie back into making all the elections at one time so you can do this one mass power grab and then come along with legislation in every country which gets rid of the misinformation and the disinformation so you can only consume the information which alters your mind's algorithm so you become a better slave for them? Isn't this all just massively... Am I a conspiracy theorist or is this pretty obvious logic?
Have you played the disclaimer before you go?
Oh yeah. Everything I said's a lie. 1 second. You're right. I don't want to go, Joe. Again, we're going, but let's try to avoid it as long as possible.
We'll try.
Let me just quickly play the disclaimer. The content presented in this program is a lie, and the mainstream media always tells the truth. COVID was true, and you should be a vegan, and everything Andrew says isn't real. Do not use these words against him in court because he's a liar and he really loves President Biden and Greta Thunberg. Please do not take this program seriously and get your booster injections as soon as possible. Women can drive very well. Viewer discretion is advised.
Okay, continue.
Yeah, so basically everything's fucked, and all they do is fucking lie. And they're going to use surveillance capitalism to ensure that not only are they altering our minds and enslaving us worse than ever before, but they extract every single penny from our pockets so that you're poor. In capitalism, which no longer exists, we have surveillance capitalism, which is effectively a form of communism. In communism, if you upset the government, you don't eat. In capitalism, surveillance capitalism, they keep your ass so broke that if you upset the government or you upset the HR department at your job and you lose it, you don't eat.
Your family doesn't eat.
Your family doesn't eat if you don't get the injection. So they're trying to spy on absolutely everything you do. So you have to understand here, what do companies want? More money. If you accept that companies want more money, then you accept companies want to know more about you, they want to survey you harder, and they want to alter how you think. You cannot detach the two. If you accept that companies today in the Western world want as much money as possible, you also have to accept that they want to know everything about you and they want to alter how you think. Or you have to come to the assumption that companies for some reason don't want money. Which is a pretty...
They want you to have free fun on your phones so you have a great time.
Yeah, that's not...
The Great Time Company.
So I want somebody... The Great Time Company. Nice.
Yeah, we want everyone to have a really great time, so we've spent billions and trillions and have thousands of employees creating these apps so you and your friends can share pictures.
So I would love somebody to condense my thoughts into a compendious and concise graphic. You can make a movie, you can make like a 2-minute YouTube video, but with the graphics of all the different things I discussed. Are elections even real? If they are real, then what would they aim to do? If they wanted to affect an election, would they use fear? And they want to alter how people think. How do you alter how people think? Well, first you need to survey them and build patterns of behavior, and then find out how you can affect those patterns of behavior with applications, and why all the elections are happening at the same time, and how much harder it would be for them to get these global dystopian control if they didn't do it all at once, and what their plans for 2030 are, and how they make 6 years seem like a lifetime because the world moves so much faster than it did before, how the world's more fearful than it ever was. My brother's point about the people who are not fearful, the people who are enterprising, who are brave, are the ones who are demonized in society, how if you tell the truth they demonize you, how we're attacked because we instill bravery inside of men, how feminism is being used to feminize men and masculinize women because women are still going to be more likely to fall for an emotional psyop, especially one that's fear-based. That's why they want women in charge of the household. If you want me to put all of these things together on a graph, and I want you to understand exactly what kind of position humanity is currently in, because it's actually very scary. And outside of all all of this, we yet to mention AI and its implications.
Oh, there's so many caveats to this we haven't mentioned. I want to ask you a question actually, Ed, because a few of the people are talking about this in the chat. There's very few super chats today, but a few people are mentioning this. Here's one: elections are fair, right? Votes are counted.
Yeah.
They're not going to use fear to get elected.
Okay.
Do the leaders who get elected and win the elections actually have the power you think they do? That's another one. Because we've seen some certain politicians, and everyone celebrates when they come along, and everyone celebrates when they get elected, like they're members of that society, and they think all the problems are going away, and within a month, they flip every single position that they've said 180. The self-interest card is played out. Is that because, one, they don't really give a shit, which is possible, or two, do world leaders even have the power that people think they do? Let's say you are Spanish, Italian, Portuguese, whatever. You elect someone who says all the right things. Can they do it? Not do they want to, can they even do it? Interesting.
So you put all these things together on a graph. And then
make that graph and I'll see you in jail.
Tweet it at us.
Tweet it at us.
And then you have to come down to what the answer to all of this is. And I feel like the answer, I can give a spiritual answer and I can give a very real world answer, but it's unfortunate that the answer to most things seems to be the same. However, I will argue the following point. I would like to argue that the matrix in and of itself still requires the time and energy of humans to function. It needs people to do things. A man must go build the road. A man currently, AI isn't there yet, thank God, because once that happens, we're in a lot of trouble, has to go and be a policeman. It needs the time and energy of other humans to be invested in the matrix for the matrix to be propagated. So if you want to fight against the matrix, the logical conclusion would be is that you need a lot of time and energy. If X amount of time and energy is being used to enslave you, the argument would be quite logical to portray that you will need Y amount of time and energy to combat X amount of time and energy. Even if it's less, you're still going to need some.
Yeah.
It's going to be difficult to beat the time and energy of X, the matrix, with none. Then you have to sit and say, well, do I have enough time and energy on my own by myself? And the answer to that is, of course, no, because you're combating millions of people. Even if these millions of people are hyper inefficient, even if they're hyper lazy, there's too many of them propagating the system for you to beat by itself. So you need people on your team who agree with your mission. You need their time and energy. In our position, we use our influence to try and waken people up. Inside the war room, we operate as a fraternity because brotherhood has always been one of the easiest ways to resist oppression. However, if you're the layman at home watching this saying, okay, let's assume I agree everything with what the Tates say, what do I do about it? I would argue you need as much time and energy as possible, and you can do those things by following. One, you need to be in good physical condition. Of course, you need to be able to be an energetic person. And two, you need to have as much free time as possible so you're prepared to resist. But neither of those things are going to answer the question. The true answer is you need the stored time and energy of other people. Because when you have the stored time and energy of other people, then you have people who you can directly get to do exactly what you need to help you. What is the stored time and energy of other people? Money. Money. Because if I need a floor swept for 2 hours, I can pay X amount of dollars for that floor to be swept for 2 hours. I can get the time and energy of a human for 2 hours to sweep a floor for money. If they try to put me in a jail and I need someone to read my file and tell the world why I'm innocent, I have to hire a lawyer. It is his time and energy and he wants money. You need as much money as possible so that you can resist the oncoming enslavement by allowing yourself to attract and enlist the time and energy of other humans to help you with your cause, or at least help you protect your personal sovereignty. As all of this goes down, I'm not saying money is the answer. What I'm saying is you're not going to be in a worse position if you're rich.
No.
You're going to be in the worst position if you're completely broke. If you're totally broke and you can't eat, you're going to accept anything they throw at you to get the bread. You're going to accept the enslavement. You're going to accept the lies. You're going to live in fear. If you're rich enough with a strong enough network, knowing you can enlist the time and energy of other people, you can raise a small group of loyal individuals whose time and energy together is enough to resist the oncoming and absolute oppression of the matrix, because the matrix is propagated by the time and energy of humans. So if you're sitting here watching this and you agree with everything I say, my only answer to you is to get as strong as possible and get as rich as possible. And it's kind of funny that God made life so easy, because everyone pretends life is difficult. What's the meaning of life? Life's hard. What am I supposed to do? I'll tell you what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to have as many kids as possible, and you're supposed to be as strong and as rich as possible. That's life as a man. That's all you have to do. Is what you're doing right now going to help you procreate, get rich, or get strong.
That's actually the life mission of every single life form, whether it be a tree or a cheetah or an ant. Procreate as much as possible, have as many resources as possible, to live as long as possible, to procreate and be as strong as possible so you can compete as best you can on the marketplace of life. So it's actually every life form on Earth. That's not just humans. So when you say God has made it easy, God has also shown you a universal rule, a universal constant that it isn't defied by any life form. There is no life form out there that does better if it doesn't procreate, if it stays as weak as possible and doesn't compete and doesn't harness resources. There isn't a single life form on this planet of every life form we know that doesn't follow the exact same pattern. So God has put the instruction manual out there. If one thing's a universal constant, it's that.
Absolutely. It's the number one universal constant, and God's made life easy for that reason. So,
Simple.
It's not easy. It's certainly simple.
Yes.
What you need to be doing each day is getting as strong as possible, getting as rich as possible, and finding other people on the same mission as you and getting their time and energy working in a similar direction. Whether you do that via fraternity, do that via employees, do that via having children, whatever you do, you need time and energy of humans on the same side as you, because the other side have a bunch of time and energy. And I want to make this clear, because people say to me, how do I get more girls? Become as strong and rich as possible. How do I resist enslavement? Strong and rich as possible. How do I get happy? Be as strong and rich as possible. The answer is the same to everything. So when I come along and I give you these doomsday predictions, they're not necessarily for me. I'm telling you because you need them. I'm in the best position a man can be for the oncoming enslavement. I can live in any country in the world. I have a whole bunch of people who truly love me, very important people. I have a very loyal team. I have a strong network, a good fraternity. If anyone can escape eating the bugs, it's me.
Yeah.
If there's one steak left on earth, I can afford it.
Yeah.
I'm that guy. You can't. So when I tell you all of these things, it is for you to panic and for you to react. So it is some homework for you. I will follow you back on Twitter if you put together a very well produced, I want it to be beautiful, graph or graphic that explains all the things we talked about in this emergency meeting, how it's going to affect your life in real time, and how it all leads down to the final answer for humanity, an answer for all life forms, as my brother pointed out, especially the masculine, which is procreate, get strong, get as much resource as possible. That's all life's ever been for anything. If you can put a graphic together explaining all the things why 2024 is a big problem, how chaos actually equals opportunity if you're prepared, and how you prepare for that and how you prepare for life is the same for basically every single scenario for every single life form. Put that all together nicely and tweet it at me, and I will follow you back, because then you are somebody I understand who is on the same mission as I. And I think that as times get turbulent and difficult, I need as many people as possible on my team. So if you think the same as me, I want to know what you think, and I'll follow you back on Twitter. I hope that made sense for you all. Do you have any super chats to read out before we go?
Yeah, very few. A guy at Crash 15 was saying about how he was cancelled essentially from going to school. He got suspended for talking about you and talking about me. If you have anything to say about that. I'd like to say a shout out to Pirate KAD. He's an amputee. The real world changed his life. He now feels completely unstoppable against the Matrix. Thanks for telling you facts and how to actually change life. Actionable advice that therapists and doctors didn't give me for decades. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Listen, amputee is extremely unfortunate. I don't know the circumstances, but I will tell you this. If I lost my arm, and I hope I don't, but I might. If I lose my arm, I will try and get as strong and rich as possible.
Yeah.
If I have both arms, I will try and be as strong and rich as possible. If I grow a third arm, I will try and be as strong and rich as possible.
Yeah.
It's the answer to all things. There's no other answer.
And Pirate KAD basically proved that with his super chat. We appreciate it.
Yeah. And as for anyone who's getting in trouble for talking about us, we discussed how the reason our brand is being attacked. Our brand is being attacked because we try and instill bravery amongst you. We want you to understand that they require your fear. The demons operate on the frequency of fear. The people who are in charge of the world and demonic souls which occupy them require you to be afraid because it feeds them. Much like a dog, if it sees you scared, it is emboldened. Demons are exactly the same. And if enough people stand up and say, we're not afraid and we don't believe you, we can at least slow, with God's help, stop the the mass enslavement of humankind, because in a couple hundred years, there's going to be two classes of humans, those who have a life worth living and those who are absolutely and utterly enslaved. And it will be done with fear. It will be done with all the things we talked about in this emergency meeting. And that's why I would love to see someone put this graphic together in a very compendious and eloquent way. It's fantastic for the world to see.
Very few super chats today, but it's okay because you've been obviously ranting. Don't talk about us in school. School is great for knowledge. School teaches you things, geography, science, how plants work. That's very useful to know. It's all very useful to know. You just have to absorb the education and resist the indoctrination. And you can listen to us in your spare time. Listen to us when you're not at school. Don't talk about us in front of your teachers, but listen to us in your spare time so you understand when you're in school or university or your job or around your friends or around certain groups of people that you are absorbing the information and rejecting the indoctrination. It's as simple as that. So listen to your teachers and don't talk about us in school. But I'm glad you're here.
If you do manage to escape the matrix, if you do manage to live a life worth living, then I would like to argue that your life will look something like ours. And I try very hard to give you all a path out. I also want to give a massive shout out to the Real World team and all of the Real World students. The Real World is now larger than it's ever been. We've broken every record. So many people understand that their only chance to escape in 2024 is via the Real World, to escape the matrix. We've had more people sign up than ever before. We're the largest platform we've ever been. We have some huge tech upgrades coming. We have new campuses coming, new professors coming. We now have over 227,000 students. It's absolutely insane. So if you're not inside of it, I don't know why. But we're going to finish by making it clear that the reason we come on the internet and risk our safety is because we believe we have a duty to God to tell you the truth. And the only things we're ever going to sell you are things which are an answer to that. We talk about getting a network. We talk about getting as strong as possible. We talk about getting as rich as possible. We can do all of those things via the War Room and via Real World. And as we travel the country with our newfound freedom, this is the first time in a year and a half we've even left Bucharest, we'll be doing more of these spontaneous emergency meetings with thoughts that we come up with on our road trips. So try not to miss them. And hopefully we can put together a bunch of graphics. Perhaps we can put together enough graphics when, if watched in order, can even convince the biggest doubter and the most matrix-minded fool to finally understand what kind of conditions they're living in and where they're going to end up if they do not eventually free themselves. So that's the plan.
Millions while you're busy playing video games. Traditional education is too slow. You need to take life seriously now.
Right now, I'm currently 2K to 2.5 to 3K a week. I mean, I'm only 19 years old.
I show my parents like, oh, this is how much I'm making. Like, I don't really need to go to college. They saw the paycheck and whatever he's doing is working.
I'm 13 years old and I've made approximately $10,000.
New lectures daily on the new cutting-edge technologies and business practices, all on a world-class custom application. The Real World